From decorated Marine combat veteran to actor, singer, philanthropist, and New York State police officer, it could be said being of service es todo for J.W. Cortés, a.k.a. Detective Carlos Alvarez on Fox's Prime series Gotham, of course. But this is someone whose real-life stories are far better and worthy of many Hollywood movies and genres. This is Hola, my name is, with J.W. Cortés. Hola, my name is. Hola, my name is. Hola. Hola, my name is.
Hola, my name is J.W. Cortés.
Welcome, brother. Good to see you.
Thank you, man. It's been a couple of years, I think, right, since we've last seen each other.
It's been too long.
Too long.
Hey, so your life story is like a Forrest Gump movie, in that you're part of several chapters, historical chapters of the history of our great country in the United States, and that you've partaked in a bunch of different historical moments, right? Looking back, what are you surprised? Are you surprised that you survived and that you've thrived in so many different areas?
Am I surprised that I've survived? I think, yeah. I mean, you know, if you look back at those different times in my life, I mean, it started at a very young age when I kind of knew that things were a bit dangerous. I mean, I grew up on a block, you know, nicknamed Little Vietnam. If that doesn't kind of set the tone for what my childhood was like, it was pretty violent. Saw a lot of different things. So I think from an early age, I knew that it was a survival of the fittest kind of environment for me. And of course, I didn't help myself because of all the branches that I could have joined at 18. It was the Marine Corps, which eventually then led me overseas for a number of years. So I think, yeah, to your point, having that strong family structure, but also having a strong belief, you know, in a higher power and definitely using that in those different moments has kept me alive, I guess. Yeah.
And everything you've done in your careers, because you have multiple careers, and we'll get into them, right? And everything that you've done throughout your lifetime. What are you most proud of? What's your biggest success to date?
Aside from my children, I guess in the career aspect of things, I think, you know, anytime that anyone has either reached out to me on social media or has stopped me on the street or has sent me an anonymous email that says, hey, because of what you said or because of what you did or because you look like me or because you come from the same humble beginnings that I'm currently coming from myself, I have attempted to pursue my own dreams or I've accomplished X, Y, and Z. Those moments, as far and few as they may be sometimes, are gold. And that's what I live for. And it's happened, right? I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've gotten, you know, quote unquote fan mail from someone in another country and the English isn't so perfect, but the message is like, dude, you look like me. And because of you, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. It's probably the greatest selfish satisfaction that I can ever get. And I love that.
And for Latinos, right, when they see, you think they're connecting more with the look and like with your character when they see you on Gotham, for example, when they see es un Álvarez, coño. Ese no solamente luce como yo, pero tiene el mismo apellido que yo y habla como hablo yo. It's a combination of all that.
I think it's all those things. You know, I had a friend of mine ask me once, he said, aren't you tired, man? You're always playing like a cop, right? And I say, well, there was a time when we were in the back of the police car. Now we're driving it. So I think there are so many instances where we are so longing to see ourselves more accurately portrayed because, you know, what I know is that if it lives out here in the world, then it can easily live up there on that screen, right? And so how many of us wear those uniforms? Thousands of us, right? And how many of us have made the ultimate sacrifice, who then we now turn around and say, well, those are heroes. Mm-hmm. So those are the same heroes and the same people who should be living on those screens. So I think it's a combination of that longing plus, as you said, the similarity, you know, with the dark, you know, with the beautifully tanned skin, you know, all those things.
All those things.
Yeah.
Any mistakes in your career or in your life that or if you could rewind and change something, would you rewind and change something in that?
You know, I think early on, I didn't know any actors. You know, I came back from the war in Iraq, and I just knew.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
You're very welcome, sir. I came back, and I just knew that here's what I knew. I knew I would no longer allow myself to get in the way of my own dreams, right?
How so?
You know, I think we're taught either as a culture or as a society to be nice to people, be nice to strangers. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they're going through. Be respectful. Open the doors for the ladies and say thank you. And we're so quick to be nice to people, which isn't a bad thing. But the one person that we're never so nice to is here. It's within us. And I don't know why that is or where we learned that from, but I wasn't nice to myself for a long time. And I often talked myself out of my own dreams, even before I would even attempt them. And
You felt you weren't good enough, capable, didn't have you didn't have the tools to be able to gain those, or the help to get there?
I think it's a combination of all those things, right? I mean, again, we look for clues. I always tell my children, success leaves clues. We don't always have to reinvent the wheel. And so we look for those clues. And sometimes if you're looking for a career in the arts, you look for others who look like you, who sound like you. And you go, okay, there's some semblance there. And I think I can do the same thing too. So for me, growing up, I remember Jimmy Smits, Isa Morales, and actors like that. I'm like, coño, man. That's it right there. You know, maybe a little bit of more Denzel Washington, but I think I can do that, right? And so I think, you know, not seeing enough of that definitely played a role in that, you know?
So being underrepresented and not seeing people, again, that look and sound like you on the big screen, wanting to see your self-reflected, you yourself stepped into that lane.
And I think here's what else I came to understand for myself. There is no conspiracy against J.W. Cortés. There is no faction or secret government agency that is plotting against J.W. Cortés.
Did you ever think that there was something that was working against you?
Maybe, I don't know, right?
Because there's a lot of people that want to be, or they claim to be victims, right? Or they play the victim role.
Yes, they play the victim role. And there is none of that, right? The one person that can fuel this thing and totally burn it out is me.
Right.
So it begins and ends with me.
And that's why I see like your story, the same thing with like the Tyler Perrys of the world, right? And the Lin-Manuel Mirandas of the world. Instead of complaining and saying we're underrepresented, no, do something to change that narrative. Do something to actually move the needle and to change history.
You know, yesterday I was on Instagram Live with my friend Cristela Alonso. And Cristela has such a beautiful story, but there's a lot of heartache in her story. You know, she was homeless at one point. She was squatting in diners with her mom and her siblings. But ultimately, she got fed up, right? Because she wanted to be on Broadway. There really were no roles for a girl who looked like her, this brown Mexican girl, right, from Texas. And so she took matters into her own hands. And unbeknownst to her, she became the first ever Latina with her own ABC sitcom show. But what she says is, had I been an actor auditioning for the same show, I probably would not have been casted in it. And that is so telling. So she took matters into her own hands. She created her own vehicle. And because it was hers, because she owned it, because she penned it, she was able to act in it. And I think that right there is what it's about.
Did you always, what did you want to do when you were a little kid?
I did want to act and sing.
Okay.
Truth be
So
told.
you had that acting kind of bug in you. Mm-hmm. And then you went on to join the military. You go on, you become a combat veteran, you come back, you become a police officer, and then at what point did your careers cross paths and you end up acting?
So 2003, I come home from the invasion of Iraq, and I loved being a Marine. I loved it. As a matter of fact, when I was in the Marine Corps and, you know, you would PT Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday mornings, they'd always call me out to sing cadences because I would add a little soulfulness to them, right?
Can you share some of it with us? Go ahead. You can sound off.
Right.
There's no one here. You can be as loud as... Go ahead. I'll sing with you. Go ahead.
Low rider Leo.
Low rider Leo.
Lefty rider Leo.
Lefty rider Leo.
Low rider Leo.
Low rider Leo.
Lefty rider Leo.
You're making me want to march now.
So I would always get my kicks off that way. But anyway, so come back and I often tell the story. I had an epiphany moment where I swear on everything that I love, I really did think that the end of my life, as I knew it, was definitely gonna end. Like there was no, this was just like, well, we were being attacked, right? We were being attacked, and without getting into all the ugliness of that, you know, you just have a moment where you're like, okay, I'm 28 years old. This is not how I thought it was gonna end. And you will have moments of absolute fear, I'm sure, and sadness and regret. And for me, the level of regret almost it outweighed the fear, because I felt like I had blown it. I had a chance at life. I had every tool available to pursue my dreams, and I did nothing about it. I allowed myself to talk myself out of it. So when I came back, it was burning inside of me, and I made a lot of mistakes at the beginning. I would show up to auditions, and here's a true story that most people don't know. My first audition here in New York City, I found on the back of a newspaper called Backstage, and so I circle it, and I'm like, I got that. I can do that. No acting experience, because, you know, me la estaba echando poquito, like, hello. Anyway, so I show up to this casting thing, and there's a piece of paper, and I don't know what it is, and I see everybody signing it, so when in Rome, do as the Romans. So I sign my name on it, right? I have a seat, and no one is talking to each other, so I'm like, oh, this must be that acting thing. These are thespians, right? But I'm just happy to be there. So here I am, I'm sitting down, and the door opens up, and this nice lady comes out, and she looks at the piece of paper, and she's like, hey, who's next? J.W. Cortés, and I'm like, right here. I get up, and she goes, okay, great, headshot.
You had no idea what that was.
Oh, I was a Marine, so I knew what a headshot for a
headshot
Marine
meant something
was.
totally different. The acting world and for a Marine.
Right. So I'm like, does she want me to demonstrate what a headshot
You want me to kill
is?
somebody here? What are you talking about?
And I wish I knew who she was, because she looked at me and her eyes were like, ay, pobrecito, you have no... you have
No sabe dónde está
I-
parado. This guy has no idea where he's
She has
standing or what he's
no-
doing.
Right. And so she explained that you need a picture, you got to get this and that. And so a lot of bumps and bruises, but that was the beginning of me fumbling my way, banging up against the walls of this pursuit towards the acting dream that I had.
Did you get the role?
No.
So the cockiness didn't help
No
for
way.
that audition.
No, it did not.
What's
No, it
the role?
did not.
The first role you ever did get?
I booked a role on a TV show. It was on NBC. I think it was called Believe, or it was one of these shows. It doesn't exist anymore.
Was it any good?
It was okay.
Were you any good?
Well, I think I was good, because I got the role, but I probably ran like a mile through the streets of New York City when my agent called me like, hey, they want you, because I couldn't believe it. Like, they want me. and that's when the hook kind of like, you know, sunk in, and I was addicted. I'm like, oh, this feeling is better than anything in the world, right? And they're gonna pay me to make believe. Are you kidding me? And that was it, man. That was it.
On Gotham, your character, Carlos Alvarez, the police officer, how much of Carlos Alvarez is reflected in J.W. Cortés or vice versa?
Absolutely nothing. No. But it's cool, right? Because if I were to tell you that I love playing anything other than myself, that's the absolute truth. If you could have me playing someone that is battling with stage 4 illness, or someone that's addicted, you know, any character with extreme flaws, I dig that. I think anytime you can stretch that muscle, I mean, to the fullest extent possible, now we're getting into the good things, you know, the good parts of what acting is and what it can be, right? So Alvarez was great. Number one, he's Latino. I'm the first human to play him. He's a comic book character.
Right. He's
which is
always
super
and you
cool.
brought him to life.
I brought him to life, you know.
That's very
so,
like prestigious. Felicidades.
Gracias. And I kind of look like him, right? Or, you know, actually, yeah, I kind of look like him. So
It kind of makes you like a superhero. No?
yeah,
Something like that.
It could be.
Right.
So that part was excellent, and that was great. But, you know, Gotham was so far-fetched as far as, like, you know, police procedural work. I mean, there were moments when the Penguin or Victor Zsasz would show up to the GCPD, and he would tell everybody, get out. and we would leave. And I'm like, part of me of JW, like, oh my God, we would never leave, right? We would fight, So that's when you just kind of have to surrender and be like, okay, in the world of Gotham,
Right.
that is definitely a possibility, So
Were you a fan of like comics or of any superhero movies before getting involved in Gotham?
So yes, I am an avid Batman fan. I love Batman. I love all things Batman. And as a kid, I was.
Who's your favorite Batman?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I think Michael Keaton, for whatever it's worth, did a really bang up job. Shout out to Michael Keaton. I'm watching him on a new show on Hulu called Dope Sick. He is phenomenal. He's gonna win all kinds of awards for his acting. But I thought he was pretty awesome as Batman. Yeah, and people give some of the other guys a hard time, but yeah, who do you like?
Michael Keaton, I have to agree with you. Just the look on his face. People hated on Ben Affleck as Batman. I think Ben Affleck did a
was
very
okay.
good job,
He did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was all right.
Who's a better Batman? Michael Keaton or Ben Affleck?
Michael, if I had to rate them, I'd say Michael. No, I shouldn't do that. No. I can play Batman.
You got the build for Batman.
I can do it.
Can we get your
not?
I am Batman imitation here?
Right. I am Batman. I can prepare for that, right? I am Batman.
There you go.
Yeah.
Convincing. We share a lot in common in that we from a line of service. We're both men that started our careers before I got into broadcasting, before you got into acting, uniform, military work, and of course as police officers, as you know, I'm still a reserve a police officer, and there's a lot of craziness that's going on in the world right now, and there's a lot of, I'd say, blue hate, or people that want to point fingers at police officers and blame everything at police officers. Yes, there are bad police officers, like in all professions, and I think that we need to do better to weed those out. But and I know you train a lot of police officers as well. If we can talk a little bit about that, and what do you think about this, these attacks that we're seeing on our men and women of law enforcement in this country, and these talks of defunding the police?
Yeah.
How dangerous is all that?
It's incredibly dangerous for a number of reasons. I'm gonna answer your questions, I think, the way you presented them. So I'm a full-time instructor. I teach now, and I absolutely love it. I spent the majority of my time out there with the public. So I speak from a place of authenticity, I would hope, when I share some of the lessons, hard-learned lessons that I had to
experience, your own personal experience.
Absolutely, both here and abroad, right, overseas. Right now, there's a large focus on a couple of different subjects in the world of law enforcement. One of those is de-escalating things, right? Not escalating so that we're forced to do things or intercede when we don't have to necessarily. Kind of backing up a little bit whenever we can safely. So that's a big topic. The other one that I am really, really passionate about is transparency, accountability. We call this thing procedural justice, where we base it all on 4 principles. And in a nutshell, what it means is if I'm able to communicate with my public in a way that's both respectful and transparent, then they'll have more of that for me. And hopefully together we can work towards, the solutions, right? So you'll come to me, you'll hold me accountable, but you'll also come to me to report the things that probably you're a little bit reluctant to report to me. So that's why I think it's so dangerous, is there are true victims out there who are afraid to come and step forward. For whatever reasons, either the people in their community are saying, hey, don't talk to those guys, or they're probably not going to do anything about that.
Because they don't care.
Because they don't care. That's the perception. We don't care. I know off camera, you and I had a really, I thought was a really great conversation about the need for more accountability, yes, but also the need for more cooperation on both ends, right? I have to be willing to say we have some issues. We've done things that probably weren't the best way to do things, but we can learn. And the best way for us to learn is to say, hey, what can we do better for you? And I think that is a conversation that we're seeing more of today. I think in all of our 50 states, everyone understands that after some of the things that we've seen at the hands of law enforcement, we understand that we can't do this without the help of the public. We need the public. As a matter of fact, the police are the public and the public are the police, right? That's the principle right there. So I think we're seeing more of that. And I think the more the public understands that in-house, I'm having those discussions with the cops. I'm teaching them how to be more transparent. I think they'll feel better about the changes that they're asking for. And I would invite them. Come to these training sessions if you can. Hear for yourself what we're asking our guys to do, because I will think that the overwhelming majority of them would walk away going, I didn't know that you guys were talking about that stuff. That's not what I see on TV. Wait a minute. What do you mean that the majority of the NYPD is now minority? I didn't know that. Really? What do you mean, JW, that you grew up in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, where there was never anyone that looked like you in uniform, and now the majority of the cops who do respond to these incidents are people who look just like you? Wait a minute, that look like me.
That's so important to diversify police departments, and I think the public trusts more the men and women that are policing their streets when they look and talk like them, and especially if they live within the same communities as well, right? When they see themselves reflected in their own police departments, there's more trust there.
I think, from what I'm understanding and from the conversations that we're having is, the world of policing has changed. It had to. Social media, for example. I know you and I are both on social media. We both understand the power of influence that it can have on someone, both good and bad. And I think for a long time, law enforcement was so it was like kryptonite, oh man, we don't do that. And I think now more and more, they're using it to bridge the gap with the public, get the information out there first, get all of the facts out there to the public so that the public can have all the information so that they can then make the right decisions or the right judgments for themselves, but also communicate with the young people. That's how you're going to get to them. And if you want more buy-in, more cooperation, then we have to learn how to speak that language.
Sure, and understand for everybody, right? When you're looking at any video on social media, any edited video on the news, you're just seeing a fraction of a totality that went down, and try not to judge people or a situation if you haven't seen the whole thing. For people that say that the solution to the problems that we have in this country with the police is to defund the police, how dangerous is that statement, and does that concern you?
It does concern me a great deal. I think there are some people who don't fully understand what they're asking for, and there are others who know exactly what they're asking for. But for those who aren't really sure, I think in the early onset of what had happened between Eric Garner, Mike Brown, and George Floyd, I think people were just fed up, and they wanted to express themselves in a way that got our attention and be like, look, we're tired of seeing that. And either you do something or we're going to do something. And so defunding, I thought, was part of that dialogue for some of these folks, right? For some of them. And I understand. It's like, I get it. I agree with you. Because no one hates bad cops more than good cops. That's the truth. You put me in danger, and that also means that my sons and my wife, that also means that it's a danger for them as well, right? Because if I don't come home, that's a big problem for my home, right? Anyway, so I think the defunding of the police it concerns me, because a lot of the people who require the police to be there every day, to be a part of their community, the lack of police when they turn left and right during these moments that we're seeing now throughout our country, where people are ransacking stores, mom and pop shops, when they're committing these heinous crimes here in New York City. They're looking left and right. And I think those people who live in those communities where the crime is so bad, where they are underserved, they're not the ones calling for defunding. I think they're the ones that are like, no, we want more of you guys. We just want you to be transparent and be professional.
Sure.
But we want to see you here.
Which is what you should expect from any public servant, right?
I expect it from my doctor. I expect it from the guy that my favorite Chick-fil-A person.
Right.
Just treat me right, man. Sure.
That's what I think we all deserve, and what all humans want is to be treated well. Let's talk about two people that were not treated well, two good cops that paid the ultimate sacrifice with their lives back in 2014, Detective Rafael Ramos and Wenjing Lu. For those that don't remember the names or don't know the names, walk us through what happened a couple days before Christmas, 2014.
So Rafael Ramos from Sunset Park, Brooklyn, married for a long time. He had two sons, Jaden and Justin. Wenji and Lou, also known as Joe, was a newlywed, been on the force a couple of more years than Rafael Ramos. And they were working together on a detail, and it was December 20th, actually, 2014. This day was a day that should have been filled with excitement for the coming season. As a matter of fact, I know, and I've heard this story directly from Maritza, Rafael's widow, so I have the permission to share the story. But they had a little bit of a tiff on the phone because she was concerned that it was December 20th and they hadn't yet finished their Christmas shopping. So as a good husband, he was like, babe, I'm going to get off in a few moments. No te preocupes que ya vamos a terminar lo que tenemos que hacer. And so he hangs up the phone, and they were having lunch in their car because sometimes you only have about 30 minutes or so to have your meal before you got to go on the next thing. And so they're there. They're parked on the side of a street in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And what they don't know is that an individual who was in Baltimore had just shot his girlfriend, stolen her cell phone, basically thought that he had left her for dead. And he jumped on a bus on his way from Baltimore to New York City, and he was on social media, and he had posted some pretty horrific things. For every one of ours, we're going to take two of theirs. I'm going to put pigs in a blanket. And so when he got off the bus, it took him to Port Authority, which is in New York City. It's a huge bus terminal. And so the bus arrives, he gets off, he jumps on the New York City subway system. And as he's traversing the New York City subway system, he's on his way to Brooklyn. And he happens to pass by somebody and says, you might want to check me out on social media. I'm about to show you something that you won't believe what you're about to see. Something to that effect. And people looked at him like he was crazy, because he was an insane, evil person. And so as he's walking through the streets of Brooklyn, he spots his victims, just two guys sitting in their car. And he goes up to the window, and in cold blood, he literally assassinates them on the spot. And I believe he fires 4 rounds, 2 into each of the 2 guys, and they're left there fighting for their lives. And this piece of garbage decides to run when he spots some cops coming in his direction, and he runs back to the subway system, gets to the far end of the subway platform where he takes his own life. At the same time, simultaneously, if we jump back to Rafael Ramos and Wenji and Lou, the scene is extremely chaotic, and everything was done to try to keep those guys alive. And sadly, they both passed on December 20, 2014.
Extremely tragic, horrific. Sounds like a plot of a fucking horror movie, but it's taken place, on our watch during our time. Very sad. From there is now the Detective Rafael Ramos Foundation, and you're very tied into that. I don't got to ask you why, but explain to us how you got involved and what the Rafael Ramos Foundation does.
Yeah. A couple of years after that, I was approached by the awesome Hispanic Heritage Foundation, and they said, listen, for all of your accolades and acting and your service and all the things you do philanthropically, we want to give you the NFL Hispanic Leadership Award. But we also want you to know that we're going to make a cash donation on your behalf to whatever non-for-profit you want. And I said, I know it. Detective Rafael Ramos Foundation. And they're like, okay, just contact them, let them know that we're going to do this. And I'm like, all right. I hung up the phone. I'm like, I don't know anyone over there. So I sent them an anonymous email. I said, hey, this is who I am. This is what's happening. If you can, just give me a call. Within an hour, I was on the phone with the vice president at the time, and I spoke to the widow, Maritza Ramos, and I said, this is what it is. Can you please come to my house so we could meet? We did. We cried at my kitchen table. We hugged, and I said, from this point forward, you're stuck with me. We went to the 50-yard line at the MetLife Stadium. The Jets came out, presented us with this huge check and this award. And that's where that bond was born. And fast forward today, after many years of serving with this foundation, I'm now its president. And what we do is we go back literally, Enrique, a few blocks away from when they were assassinated. There happen to be 2 elementary schools nearby, and we have gone back to those schools and other schools to send a message back to this community that although this incredibly sad and horrific thing happened here, we're going to come back with a message of love, of accountability, of representation. So what we do is throughout the year, we have these events. We go back to these most underserved parts of New York City, places where most people wouldn't want to be caught dead in, right? For obvious reasons. So we go back there, we load up trucks with toys, thousands of toys, and we just, we give them out, right? But we do it in a way that's pretty profound. I line up literally as many cops as I can, and I give them toys. And behind them, there's a mountain of toys. And I say, for every kid that stands in front of you, I just want you to smile and give them this toy. That's all you have to do. Before long, their eyes are filled with salty water discharge. Their chins are shaking a little bit. Their throats get a little bit choked up.
The kids or the cops?
The cops. Yeah, both, And it's become a thing where now the public has come to expect it. And the parents go, and I'm going to be, completely transparent here. They'll go, look, I've got 4 kids. I really wasn't sure how I was going to be able to get them toys this year. Thank you, right?
You remember the impact of seeing a police officer in uniform when you were as a kid and looking up to them, right? Sure. What impact is this having on a kid in the hood seeing a police officer be super friendly to them and handing them a toy?
What I hope is it's the beginning of a relationship that'll pay dividends in the future. Maybe there's a connection there where the young kid says, well, the last time I saw a cop, he was giving me a toy. The last time I saw a cop, he wasn't arresting, he was giving me a smile, and his name was John or Jose or Ricky or whatever. I want to give them something else to include in their narrative than whatever else they're receiving from someone else, right? I want to have some level of influence on that, But it isn't just that. It's also on the parents. Sure. It's also on the public on the fringe looking in.
Because as a combat war veteran, as a police officer, you've gone through and seen a lot of shit. We talked earlier when we started talking about working in Iraq and thinking that might be the end of your life and not coming back to your family. That being the end of you. I think it's fair to say you've suffered some PTSD, like most servicemen and women and first responders do. But the community and those kids in underprivileged areas, would you say also are suffering from PTSD?
Yes. And that is such a great point that you bring up. Rightfully so. Sometimes the lights are focused on our first responders and our veterans community. And I get that, you get a front row seat, right, to the worst of inhumanity, and that constant day in and day out. I use a metaphor that sometimes we begin these careers with empty backpacks, and throughout our careers, we're adding stones, right? And sometimes the stones are big. They're boulder size. And we throw them in there anyway, and we continue going. But at some point, that thing gets way too heavy, and either we break or it breaks us, right? And so I think our community has the same backpack. They're also adding stones. Every time they go to their social media and they're seeing, like you said, the worst that is out there, you become numb. I know that in law enforcement, you run the risk of becoming desensitized. Why? Because it's a tool of the trade, right? If I show up to a really horrific scene and you're looking at me and I'm in uniform, you're expecting me to get my job done. Whether or not that kid looks just like my son or not, whether or not if I'm a female officer and I had a miscarriage and here I am responding to another baby job, that's going to affect me. But you don't want to see that, and I get that, right? You want me to keep it together. But at some point, that backpack, it's another big boulder there. So I think the same backpack, the community has it, but we don't really necessarily talk about it with the same level of empathy. But we definitely need to be doing that as well.
We definitely need to be more empathetic, more sympathetic. Hay un dicho en español, there's a saying in Spanish, say, cada mente es un mundo. Every mind is a world, right? So, and there's a lot of people right now listening to us or watching us right now that's going through some shit. And that's carrying that backpack, and maybe that backpack is so full of rocks right now, it's becoming too difficult to bear. And they're considering, or maybe right now doing, on the way, or just decided to do something stupid. Committing a crime, hurting somebody else, or hurting themselves. What would you tell that person right now that has a very heavy backpack?
You're not alone. I have been there. I am a phone call, I am a DM away, and you have a nation, you have an army of people who want to hear from you, that want to see you around, that can offer you all of the help you need, because you're not in this thing alone. We're here together. And what you're feeling and experiencing is not just an emotion or an idea or something that's going to go away. If I told you I had cancer, you would expect me to go and get help. Well, this is the same thing. It's just on the inside. It's just on the inside. But it does so need your help. And so please reach out either to me or someone that you know will listen, and let's get you some professional help, because it isn't just going to go away. But I'm on the other side of this thing, and life is beautiful. And I'm so glad that I stuck around.
He's JW Cortés on the gram. Make sure you follow him. You got great content up there, always positive, good vibes. I ask you to leave a question here for my next guest without knowing who that guest is going to be. Whatever type of question you want to ask them.
Man, that's a good one. Okay, that's a good question for a question. All right. This guy's so smart. Okay, let me see. If you could call one person from your past, who would it be and why?
He's JW Cortés. This is Hola, my name is. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
the best to you. Many blessings to you and your awesome family.
Thank you, brother.
Y muchos
Happy
éxitos
holidays.
más. Happy
Yes.
holidays.
Yeah, you too.
Hola, my name is. Hola, my name is.